Hi team, welcome back to our Introduction to Chinese History Anchor Fact series of printables and mini lessons. In this series, we will learn about some of the most important events that explain the long story of China, the most ancient of today's cultures, to reveal the explanation for why China is so important in the world today. We started by learning about how modern China, which has become much more important since Made in China began in 1978. Then we leaped all the way back to circa 2200 BC, when the Emperor Shun chose his minister Yu to be the next emperor instead of his own son. This began the tradition of benevolent despotism that the Chinese have relied on their entire history, and which Deng Xiaoping was a part of when he said, "To get rich is glorious." When we look at the example of Shun and Yu, and of Deng Xiaoping, we can see that sometimes rulers actually do good for the people. The problem with benevolent despotism, though, was captured by the famous phrase, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." When someone, like a Chinese emperor, has all the power to do what they want, it's actually very difficult for them to do good. We saw that again with Deng Xiaoping, with the Tiananmen Square massacre, when he decided that the people were too rebellious and they should be punished. If anyone disagrees with the ruler, whether it's an emperor or a communist dictator, that ruler can just order them to do what he wants. He can even have them killed. That makes it more difficult for emperors to listen and learn and to actually do good. That was the problem that had already plagued the first three dynasties: the Xia dynasty, established by Shun and Yu, and then the Shang dynasty, which was overthrown in a rebellion, and the Zhou dynasty, which was falling apart right around the time that the most famous person in Chinese history was born. His name was Confucius. Confucius was born circa 551 BC, in a time when the Zhou, the third of China's great dynasties, was in trouble. We'll learn more about the problem of dynasties rising and falling in Lesson 5 in this series. It happens because power corrupts, and the fact that people eventually rebel against corrupt rulers. Because of this simple reality, Chinese dynasties, like dynasties in Europe and elsewhere, would get into trouble trying to over-control their people, such as by raising taxes. When the people started to complain, the emperors would not listen. They had the power to force the people to do whatever they wanted. But eventually the people refuse to obey. And once the rulers decide that the people are misbehaving and they need to be punished, a vicious cycle sets in. The people push back and the rulers push harder. If the people have had enough, then they eventually decide to rise up. How could the rulers avoid such a crisis? How could the rulers avoid their own corruption that caused it? Confucius believed that rulers could be taught to be good and stayed that way. He believed in the power of education. He taught the rulers a set of ideas long accepted in China, but collected together for the first time by Confucius, which is known as Confucianism today. Although there is a lot to it, the basic ideas can be summarized as: the rulers must think of themselves as the fathers of the nation. They must think of their role as that of a parent taking care of a child. Parents have the power to control the lives of children, but they try to do good for them. See the connection? The main ideas of Confucius's advice to the emperors are known as the bonds of piety. A bond is a relationship, and piety means a strong belief or commitment. Brothers and sisters have a strong bond and believe in protecting one another. Husbands and wives have a strong bond and believe in protecting each other. The rulers should have a strong bond to their people too, and this would help them to believe that their main job is to protect those people, said Confucius. It's pretty straightforward, but not easy. As we will see, every dynasty eventually became corrupt despite Confucius's teachings. Eventually, the whole arrangement even fell apart when the rulers could not find a solution to the pressure on China coming from Europe. But we've got a long way to go before we get there. First, we'll look at some of the great accomplishments of the early rulers and dynasties, including the Great Wall of China in our next lesson. Before we go, let me mention that the timeline that we're using in the lesson is available as part of the printables package, and all the lessons and activities in this series are available on demand on the Knowable World website. So visit knowableworld.com for more information. See you in the next lesson.